Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Connecting Dots podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Usama, and today we are joined by the Director of Disruptive Technologies at Ericsson. Her name is Tatiana, and she hails from Silicon Valley. So in the upcoming conversation, we'll get into the conversation about how her decision-making has helped her in being where she is, and what does her job title entail. So with that, first of all, Tatiana, formally welcome you to the show, and how has your day been so far?
Hi, Usama. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I look so much forward to sharing everything I can and hopefully help the next people in my former positions. My day has been hectic, actually. I'm about to head out on vacation, so you want to finish out everything. So I'm still working on that.
Nice. Okay, so first of all, before we get into the nitty gritty of everything, I want you to provide a brief summary of how your early life had been and how did you dabble into tech?
Oh yeah. How did I get into tech? I actually started as tech. I used to be a software engineer. So Ericsson is kind of my first job out of school, and I'm still there. I've been here for 13 years, and yeah, I was a software engineer for 7, 8 years or so, and that was all kinds of like IoT stuff, web development stuff. I also did some in the network design optimization domain, but it's just a fancy word for saying I did more web development, to be honest, and app design and things like that. So I think how I got into more deeper tech was always like I was working at Ericsson, right? So
Hmm.
when you start at Ericsson, everyone has kind of the same feeling of being super overwhelmed by telecom and acronyms. We love our acronyms at Ericsson. So I was like, okay, I really want to understand the technology better. And I feel like this is how I can bring more value to the table. So this is how I started taking more strategic roles. Um, and trying to deep dive more into certain areas. I started doing a lot of thought leadership within very advanced topics. I come from the cloud infrastructure domain, so this is where I would work in something that's called system management, which means we look around 3, 4, 5 years ahead and build proof of concepts. And all of a sudden, I was the person building these proof of concepts, and no Google could answer any questions for you because it's so far
Yeah,
ahead. So
there
I
was no
think
chat GPT at that time.
exactly. Oh my God. I wonder
Yeah,
if ChatGPT could even capture some of that. Um, but
yeah.
yeah, I think having these situations and knowing and learning how to overcome these harder challenges made me so much better at what I am. And yeah, I did this a top talent program with more technology focused, and they sent me around the world quite a lot. So I went to Korea, I went to Silicon Valley, I went to Sweden a lot, I went to India, which was really interesting. Many different places and taking many different perspectives. Oh, they even sent me to Romania to our network operations centers and seeing how actually all the things that we built from a product perspective are utilized and used from the customer serving and operations standpoint. So that was also super, super fascinating and learning and gaining more the end-to-end picture, while at the same time also thinking more strategic. Like I would write up some business decisions and things like that. Um, Getting really the full view helped me so, so much in being good at what I'm good at now. So I think that was a great part in that.
Right. And I would be very curious to ask you this that, when you initially start as a software developer, you do a lot of programming yourself. And that actually gives you a lot of, whenever the code works, I guess, it gives you a sense of achievement at that time. But then as you take on more leadership roles, you rather map out the requirements instead of doing the coding yourself. So when was that time for you when you actually made peace with yourself that it's okay not to program yourself, but rather work with other people to create great programs? So how was that for you?
I think it helped just I think well, maybe I talk about this in a little later section of this conversation, but I always think it is good for you to go in an area that is most fun for you, that you enjoy, that and normally it's also what you're good at, right? So when I was coding, actually when I started to learn how to code, the first 2 weeks, I was like, I hate this. this is horrible. This is so hard. Like it's killing
It's so
me.
relatable.
Right? And especially
Yeah.
not knowing how to code at all. So I think, and it was a bachelor's degree of like, I know I have 3 years ahead, but I'm also not a quitter. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit it out. I'm gonna do it, finish it. I finished it decently. But it wasn't the most easy part for me or the most natural part for me. And especially having the patience of sitting and debugging for hours only to find that you freaking missed like a little column or something like that. That is
Literally.
like literally,
Yeah.
and every
Yeah.
developer, like literally when I do public
Yeah.
speaking engagements to developers, that's what I start with because every developer can relate to that. We've all been there. And some are really good at doing that and finding this, oh wow, I feel so accomplished once you find it. For me, it was rather like I just spent 5 hours on this, all the things I could have done in 5 hours. So I think from that point of view, the transition was actually good. I do sometimes miss to just get something done myself, because now I'm in a position is like, okay, I want something done. I need to go and find the developer to do it. I need to go and find the budget to do it. Sometimes I still have, and this is, I think, a great value that I sometimes bring to the table is actually, I'm like, okay, let me just not wait for that person. I just go and do it myself. Sometimes I know, and not talking necessarily about coding, but for example, I just edited a video because I needed something cut out. For example, like just having this hands-on mentality. Just I'm not gonna sit around and wait for something to do for someone to do my thing. I'm just gonna go and do it. I think that I still have it, and it helps tremendously being a doer, being someone who gets stuff done. And I think other than that, you still find like small achievements, right? Um, in every position that you have these micro goals of like, hey, I can achieve this, I can achieve that. And then you have this instant like um, return of like, yay, I've done something really great today. So I think that's really important to have in every role to be able to break your stuff down like that.
So now, if you were to specifically talk about your current hat of being the director of disruptive technologies, so primarily, what are different facets that the role touches, and as a person who would be executing in such a role, what are the general responsibilities? Like, how does your day look like?
Like where do I start? It's a lot, right? So I
Yeah.
think so. There's this role kind of evolved, right? I feel that this is really really important for everyone to kind of evolve your roles and responsibility with what works exactly for you as a person, with your talents and what makes sense for the company too. Today, my day to day is mostly like I look into disruptive technologies, and disruptive technologies for me or us is something that is outside of the mainstream business. For example, specifically the things that I look into these days is quantum is very big for me right now. Then I'm looking into aerial technologies and satellite, especially with the non-terrestrial network standard coming up and up. We've had a lot of announcement with Starlink, for example. I mean, not us, Ericsson, but
Fun
like
stuff.
some of our customers, right,
Yeah.
had those announcements. And others, Global Star with Apple, and so on. So there's a lot happening in this space, no pun intended. Um, Super exciting times and many potential opportunities for us. We're just figuring out where could those opportunities be like for Ericsson. And then another one is blockchain, which is a little bit of a more mature area, but there's still a lot of things that we could possibly do as Ericsson. So these are the three key technologies, but it also extends continuously. Like as new technologies emerge, and sometimes it's just a matter of hearing like, oh wow, this sounds really interesting, there's an opportunity. One thing that I'm looking into completely at the side is like and I can't talk about it actually at all. Some of these things don't play out. Some of these things are very far ahead, and that's fine. But some of these things we realize, quantum, for example, there's something called post-quantum cryptography. It's very near term. So I work on all of these different horizons. And my day to day is literally like figuring out where's the opportunity, who needs to be involved, how do we make it happen, then go to the people who make these decisions and make sure that it happens. in a nutshell, really. And it requires like a very diverse skill set, looking at it from a technical perspective, looking at it from a more business perspective, being able to prepare the material in a way that it is digestible, asking the right makers, identify the right decision makers. We're 100,000 people trying to find the right
Yeah.
person who needs to say yes to, hey, can we do quantum? Like it's
Yeah.
not, it sounds
Yeah.
simplified, but the reality is, I've been working on just that like since last year. And for example, one small achievement that we had was actually the public announcement of the Quantum Canada hub, which is amazing. And I'm like, wow, finally we're talking about this. Another thing is labs and parks. Like I actually started my job mainly focused on like, hey, can you figure out what labs we have in North America? And also what parks we have in North America. And then I actually, from having that task, and it turned out to be a huge task actually, I realized, wow, we have something like 22 labs just in North America alone. And we have parks. I think we have right now we're like 270 or so proof of concepts that we have done in the last 3 to 4 years, which is quite a lot too. And I have detailed descriptions of all of them. And I was able with that to like build a little bit of strategy around it, and also the labs to actually find out all the owners, what are all their roles, and actually now creating visibility. Now we list our labs externally, which we didn't do before, because this is something where our customers can come and collaborate, and our partners can come and collaborate with us on, right? So that was a huge thing. I still do it somewhat, but now it's more of a community approach, a visibility approach of like, how can we utilize these labs better? And it normally starts with by creating awareness that we have them and what they do and the amazing innovations that the people, because all these labs have so many people behind them, right? Uh, so that is really awesome. Yeah.
Nice. And does it help being in California, where all of this disruption or disruptive technologies being is being thought about, it's being created? Does it help being at that location? Is it strategic?
I think sometimes it does help. When I started this role, my boss at that point, I changed boss because it's just that role of my boss. The guys having their job changed, right? But the initial guy who hired me, he was like, technically, it doesn't matter where you are. Like you, they recommended me to at some point in my Ericsson career to actually be either in a headquarter location, which is in Plano, or in New York, which is where we have some executives, or someone even go to Sweden. And I understand it from a network perspective. Luckily in California, though, in the meantime, I think it did help me being here, though, because we have other groups in California that I do interface. One of our biggest and most, how should I say, ecosystem driving labs, the D15, is here in California. I work quite a lot with them. Then we also have the Advanced Technology Group, which is actually impacting a lot of standards. Also, our Ericsson research, which is also impacts a lot of these standards, especially when you talk about further ahead things. They are also here in California and Silicon Valley. Super, super important to talk to them a lot, work with them a lot, especially as I think we are trying to align also somewhat to the US government strategy, for whom quantum, for example, is really important too. And the guys impacting the US government are actually also sitting here to some extent. So I think that was really helpful. Of course, there's an ecosystem, and sometimes I do talk to some leaders from the ecosystem, and I think that is really important too. However, I think I think we need to figure out ourselves what we want to do first before we go to a ecosystem and partner and say like, hey, let's do something together. Of course, it doesn't always happen like this. Sometimes a partnership is first, and then we're like, okay, let's do this together. Um, but for me, in my role, I like to think about it strategically first, figure out what we have internally, and go from there. based on what do we need from the ecosystem.
And now, hearing the fact that your journey started as a software developer and now you're more of in the leadership role, and it does seem like Ericsson has such a powerful ecosystem to enable those individuals who are aspiring for more challenges, for more opportunities for themselves. So, in that regard, Tatiana, after now that you look back at your 13 years of your career, what do you think is Ericsson's unique differentiator for you?
Oh, for sure. I really like that question because it is so tempting. It's so easy to answer. Oh, we have the best products, we have the best quality, whatever. But like everyone can claim that, right? Like we can say we're a global company, everyone can claim it. But I think especially what helps at Ericsson, and I think what enabled me to grow as much as I did and to grow as fast as I did, and I think a lot of other people can, is actually the people inside of Ericsson, the networks that you create. Like Ericsson has this amazing, for example, I did this program, this top talent program. I became so good friends with those people. I still go and travel with them. Every time I'm in a location where one of them lives, we go meet up and do things. We all traveled like randomly to this wedding to China together. And I think these really close connections help you so much because all of these people went on and became really great, got into really great position themselves, right? So that helps a lot. You grow with other people and having that network. And it's not just that, but wherever you go, like after having been to Ericsson Korea, in Sweden, of course, but in Europe, I'm originally from Germany. It's a Swedish mentality, which is a really great thing because it means very flat hierarchies. Literally, like on the first day that I started my job at Ericsson, I was like, fresh out of school, like super, like, hesitant, shy, and whatnot. And then
Yeah.
they told me, oh, the nice thing is like at Ericsson, you can literally write a mail to everyone, you'll get a response. And like literally, you can write an email to the CEO, you will get a response. There's very flat hierarchies. You see someone, oh, I need to connect, and especially in my role, it's super, super important. I'm like, I wanna talk about blockchain, but I don't know who to reach out to. So I go through the org chart. I'm like, could be that something blockchain could be in that area, and then I see head of blockchain development. Let me write an email to that guy, and this is how I connect, and this is how I drive a lot of these opportunities sometimes. And you can do it and you get a response, if you're reasonable, of course. But I think that's one of the super super key values, and it enables young talent who is willing to actually be open and reach out like that.
Right, excellent. And if we extrapolate that thought a little further, and if we talk about work culture and traditions, do you have any cool work traditions with the team that you work with?
So my team is spread all across US specifically, right? It's like we're the CTO team of North America. I report into the CTO, so we're everywhere. But so a Swedish thing is actually to have, and now I hope I'm not butchering this thing because I'm not Swedish, but a Swedish tradition is actually to have a fika, to have like a coffee break and kind of your kind of coffee chat, water cooler discussion. Normally there's cake involved, which is a little bit hard remote, but at least to kind of still have those discussions, to be close to the team. We try to do a happy hour on a regular basis where we just chit chat a little, but also try to like, I normally invite, I organize that for the team, and I normally invite like some cool kind of technology topic that I just heard about. It's just in my job. I hear about of many, many things. I just
Yeah,
invite some
yeah.
kind of guest speakers from internal in most cases, some guest speakers, and we chit chat in that kind of setting. And I think it's really kind of reproducing a virtual fika, this coffee kind of chat. I think that's really, really valuable to stay close, especially as we're moving more remote, especially in a company who's so global with 100,000 people, 180 countries, and you work with people. It's important to find out ways how to connect. So I think that's really, really important.
And just a silly question though, for journal public's perspective, are there any tech conferences that they can follow to hear more about the news from the telecom industry? Because I believe you could go to several of the events happening, might be happening in the Silicon Valley about tech in general and startups coming up with new technology and all. But I still feel like telecom might be a little niche. So in that regard, do you have any recommendations for people to learn more about the telecom world?
I mean, I think the biggest one for telecom is just Mobile World Congress. I mean, that's where we go. They have different ones, right? For example, I went to the one in Barcelona, which was really, really interesting. That's the biggest one. But there's actually also one in Shanghai. There's also one in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is going to be more the US centric one. And I think that one was really interesting. Like last year, I went there and I had this interesting position of not looking, normally being a very, very big company in telecom, you kind of only pay attention to the other big companies, right?
Yeah, of course.
And what I actually did, I'm like, no, I'm looking for disruptive technology. So I literally went and checked out all the small vendors that people normally don't pay as much attention to. And that was so interesting. Like I had a conversation with them. I'm like, hey, what do you have to offer? I'm like, for example, one thing I learned is like you can actually charge through radios. And I think we actually showed a similar thing at Mobile World Congress because we are researching together with MIT on a similar thing. Like having basically at some point the promise of like infinite sensors that never need to be recharged and everything becomes a sensor and they charge the batteries through the radios. Anyways, but
That is super cool.
I know, right? It's super, super cool. That's the kind of stuff you hear about at Mobile
Yeah.
World Congress. You need to come to Mobile World Congress. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah. I should definitely tell my wife about it. Her phone is most times not charged. I think that it would really help her.
Literally already today. And this vendor that I talked about,
Yeah.
they had some offerings in the Wi-Fi domain. And you can already buy things that you can add to your Wi-Fi router if you're like a hacker. For your Wi-Fi device on Amazon. You can literally buy it on Amazon and then you can start charging it. It's insane. That
Yeah.
was really, really,
I
and you
guess your
need to
team is
install it.
definitely the place to be at. It is pretty cool.
It is a really cool thing. Again, it's a little
Yeah.
further out. There is some research collaboration with MIT that we're working on. And I think there was an announcement about this maybe last year or so. But yeah, definitely Mobile World Congress. Other than that, I think it is really about, so telecom as such is not really different from other parts of the IT industry, right? We are just like other very, very modern players. I don't want to say names, but I mean, you guys all can think about it, right? When you open a browser, huh? Who do you see? But then we're also in the telecom space. We are looking into generative AI. We are looking into quantum. We are looking into blockchain. All these buzzwords, like we are working on those. Maybe we are a little bit, how should I say, more reserved in making announcements about like what exactly can we do in our telecom products. But I think it's also part of it is having the awareness of like what does a telecom product do. I think we all take telecom sometimes a little too much as a commodity, right? Like when you think about like everyone is using 5G, right? They have it on their phones, but where does it come from? What does it do? Um, I think that's a little bit causing a lack of information maybe out there. So I think it's just important to dig deeper and thinking, hey, where does it come from? And it's actually really hard and mind blowing to achieve for every single phone in the US having 5G connectivity. Like imagine what it takes, right? So I think people don't think about it. It's like water, where does it come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. So moving on a little bit from the conversation of the corporate work, but now switching gears a little bit towards the academic side of things. So Tatiana, in terms of formal education, tell us in a few sentences maybe about what kind of education have you gotten, and do you have any plans of getting more degrees, or or fill us in?
Yeah, so So I have a Bachelor of Science in scientific programming. So that's how I started. Then I have a Master's of Science in Operations Research. The bachelor's I got it in Aachen in Germany, and then the master I have two masters actually. The masters I got them in Maastricht University in the Netherlands. So this is the Master of Science, and then I also have an MBA, also from Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And I used to even travel back and forth all the time
Yeah.
to complete the master's. Luckily, it was an executive master's program,
Right.
for the MBA at least. And um, yeah, I think I'm good. There was a time when I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I was getting like, especially as I did the MBA coming from a tech background, I was getting a little bit tired of the business stuff. So I was like, oh, maybe next I do like a PhD on the side or something like that, and maybe get more into
The
maybe
hardcore
even
technical stuff.
yeah, like I was literally thinking like electrical
Yeah.
engineering or something like that, like understand the world a little bit because I see like my master's and my bachelor's that were in science before is more like computer science and applied mathematics, which is really fun. I really enjoy math and data. However, I was like, okay, but every time there is something more like from the physics domain, I need to like really research it and look it up again because I just have that gap. And of course, you can learn yourself a lot. So I was like, should I just keep relying on just learning things myself? And this is quite important in telecom. For example, when I look into quantum, it's all physics, right? Or when I like radios and waveforms, especially looking into 6G, how does beamforming work? It's all like physics, right? But at the same time, also increasingly so when you look into like even blockchain or like especially AI and machine learning and this kind of stuff is very much mathematics. So that's where I feel more at home again. So I'm like, do I really want to feel that gap? But at some point, my, my partner was saying at some point, he was joking, like, I'm collecting degrees. At some point, I'm like, okay, when I see a gap, maybe it's enough just if I research it myself. There's no need to throw a full degree on it because otherwise I will never stop. And it does take away quite a lot of capacity when you study. And that was also my motivation when I did the MBA. I was like, I want to learn it for myself. I try not to be career oriented about when choosing a degree. I'm not doing it. You know how many MBAs are like
Yeah.
your return of investment in 3 years because your new job will give you so much more salary. Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. And it has to be intrinsically motivated, like many things that we do, right? So from that perspective, I could not justify another degree, even though I really thought about it in my intrinsic motivation because it takes so much time. And at some point, you're like, okay, I move on. I take other hobbies. Um,
Right. And other than the academics and your work, when I Google your name, I see a lot of references about running, being a gymnast, and stuff like that. So I got really excited about that. So share a few thoughts about what are you known for other than being the director.
oh yeah, I loved it because I feel like we are not just work shouldn't define us, right? But at the same time, I feel like the same kind of resilience that we bring at work, it needs to come from somewhere, right? And it helps when we have another outlet for that as well. So I used to be a competitive gymnast. That was more like when I was a teenager. It's been a long, long time. But so that's a long time. And normally, like you're kind of you do this type of stuff at a younger age. I think your body can keep up with that at some point being a gymnast. But then, like recently, I think especially when I moved to the US, I came to appreciate the outdoors so much more. So I started running more and more. I started biking a lot more. I invested sometimes swimming actually as well. And I did my first half marathon at that point, and I was like, oh wow, I feel so accomplished. And actually, I didn't think I could do it, but it was so easy. So then I went, and it was a pandemic and you're kind of in this position during the pandemic where you're like, what do I do? You know? And I really loved being outdoors. So I wanted to do a full marathon and slowly go up from there. However, stuff got canceled because it was a pandemic. So I'm like, and I already kind of played with the thought in my mind of like, hey, there's this superhuman beings. They're called Ironmans, which is a very, very long, hard triathlon. I'm like, how is anyone able to do it? It's so hard. But then I realized, why not try? And then I see how hard it is. So I literally signed up to an Ironman, and most I ever did at that point was a half marathon. But I signed up to the Ironman a year away. And an Ironman is like it's a 4K, or I keep mixing up miles and K, but it's like a 4 kilometer swim. It is a 180 kilometer bike ride, and it is a full marathon run all in one day. So I was like, maybe I can do it. Let's see. And then I started training for it, and I realized I could do it. And yeah, so I do Ironman now, and I did one. My first one got canceled. I trained for it again, so I got a full another year to train for it. I finally completed last October. I did the Ironman Sacramento in California. And from there, I'm like, oh, this is fun. And actually, I don't feel so bad after completing it. I feel like the journey was the most amazing thing, actually, realizing what I'm capable of doing when I try something. And all of a sudden, having a very unachievable goal become achievable. So I signed up for another one, and I signed up to a triathlon club, and I love it. I spend so much time with these people, and it's quite inspiring because you meet all these people who achieve these amazing thing, because these people are like, they haven't only done one, they have done so many in crazy times and insane, super inspiring. And I also started from there. I'm like, I really like being outdoors and on the trails and more in nature, so I started trail running, and I did sign up to a ultra marathon, an ultra trail marathon. And I completed my first ultra trail marathon, which was a 50K a month ago. And last Saturday, I actually attempted a 100 kilometer ultra trail marathon.
That is
Unfortunately,
very, very exciting.
thank you. I mean, that one
Yeah.
I didn't complete it entirely. I managed to do 65 kilometers. It was quite hard. I'm like, you get out of the heat. But I think I really like doing hard things, and it just pushes your horizon of what is feasible. And I think bringing that mindset back to work is super important, because there's many times when you work in innovation and disruptive technologies, someone like when I started looking into quantum, you can't believe how many no's I got. So many people said, no, it's not going to happen. No, it's 100 years away. No, it's like, so many reasons why not. But actually, when you start doing hard things, you start thinking differently in terms of not thinking of why do we bother, or say no straight up, but instead you start thinking of, hey, why not? And you look into the feasible things, and you kind of break down things in small little goals and go from there to there to there. And you start seeing a path of like, hey, we could actually leverage this really soon. So I think that's
Yeah,
really, really
no, no,
helpful.
that's super fun, and thanks for the inspiring words. I must say, I need to start getting back in shape as well. I've left working out a while ago, but it's
Hey, everyone,
definitely
everyone has their own things. It doesn't need to be a sports thing. Maybe you're on the side working on your own startup. I mean, doing a podcast is pretty entrepreneurial. Like everyone has their own Ironman thing, a hard thing that they're working at.
definitely. And one of the things, and the reason I say that is because sometimes after literally back to back to back meetings, I feel fully drained, and all I want to do is sleep. And sometimes I'm like, I still know some people who want to do fun stuff after all of that grind of 8 hours. So that's why I was like, maybe sports might be a good outlet to vent that energy and maybe get freshened up. Maybe I'll try. I'll see what happens.
Totally, totally. And that's totally like
Yeah.
for me, it helps so much. I mean, I try to actually, I feel like for me, it's hard to go out after work. Um, Once I do, I'm really happy to do and work out after work. But I know it's a little bit harder to motivate yourself. For me, I literally try to run out during lunch hour. That's the best thing. Or I try even to go with before work, because I feel like once my body got out, like release the excess energy, kind of, it's so much easier for me to focus. Like I literally, especially like once you're used to doing things daily, I kind of get like, I'm like, I need to go out and do something. If I don't get to go out and I sit through a lot of meetings, it's hard for me to sit still. So I try to get it in even before.
Nice. And now that we're reaching almost the end of our conversation, I just have a few questions left for you. So, Tatiana, in terms of, I would say, being very practical and being very successful in these leadership roles and high stress roles, I feel like ethics is an important aspect as well that really provides us guidelines to work effectively. What are some of the core values that you uphold in your life and have really helped you in your journey?
I mean, I think it's really important not to shy away from hard things. I think this is really the biggest thing. And especially as an advice to early career professionals, I think choosing to do the thing that is hard, it kind of it will be what you become known for because probably other people think it's hard too, right? So I think choosing to do hard things, it's a really, really good one. And then also at the same time, and I learned this very recently because before I was like, okay, let's be efficient with time, especially doing so many things, doing an MBA at the side. But I realized normally, especially multitasking, we as human beings are not so much science underlays it that you are not capable of multitasking. None of us is, right? The quality will go down. So I actually learned since to just try to focus on one things at a time, and at the same time trying to do the best job I can. Because the thing I hate the most is sometimes like you don't succeed at something and then you get regrets, you know, you're like, what if I would have done this and that and that and that. So I just try to do the best job I can at everything I do, even when it's when I know like there's little stakes for it, like that it's maybe not the most important thing, the most priority thing. But if I choose to pick it up, I try to be the best I can. And I think this is also something that again, when you're like just starting your career, then this is something that you will also be known for, that whatever you deliver, it's like a high quality thing. So I think that's the most important thing to really do the best job you can.
Right. Thanks a lot for the sage advice. And honestly, you've answered the second part of my question as well. So I guess we can formally end the conversation here. I had a great time talking to you, Tatiana, and I wish you nothing but the best. And as far as our audience are concerned, if you like the content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to show your support. And do buy me a coffee, to which I'll provide a link in the description as well. And we're very open to the feedback. And if you have any guest suggestions, any recommendations, or any feedback in general, do not forget to engage with us in the comment section. So until the next episode rolls out, do take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.